The hero Maui. Hero of the Pacific, the Polynesian peoples settled more than 1,000 islands in the Pacific Ocean. Each island has its own traditions, but one of the mythical figures common to all of Polynesia is the trickster Maui. His heroic exploits have been told in different ways all across the Pacific. Maui was a demigod, the son of a human woman, and a god. Therefore, he was not immortal, but he did have supernatural powers of cunning, imagination, and strength. Here are a few stories that Polynesians have told about the hero Maui. Maui pushes up the sky. Long ago, the earth and the sky had not yet been separated. People were forced to crawl from place to place when they wanted to move around. It was very inconvenient and difficult for people to fish, farm, or visit one another. Seeing this, Maui decided to raise the sky into the heavens so that humanity could move around freely. He went to the sky god, Ru, to get assistance with this task. They arrived to travel far apart from one another, and then, on a signal, pushed the sky up simultaneously. Maui crawled north and Ru crept south until they each came to a place where they could lie flat on the ground and raise their backs against the sky. At Maui's signal, they both began to push. Their strength was enormous, and the sky began to move. Gradually, they pushed themselves into a crouching position. Then, with great effort, they stood up, with the sky resting on their shoulders. Then Ru and Maui placed their hands under the sky, palms up, then stretched upward until they were taller than the tallest mountain. As they grew, the sky rose with them until it floated miles above the land. Their achievement is still visible today as we look up at the perfect blue dome Ru and Maui created. People, plants, and animals can now grow and more freely on the earth because of their efforts. Maui snares the sun. The lifting of the sky created an unexpected problem. Suddenly the sun had enough base to run across it very quickly. This caused great suffering for humankind. As the days became very short, plants could not grow, fruits could not ripen, and the nights were long and bitterly cold. Maui's mother was particularly unhappy, for the sun's speed interfered with her work. It was her task to make cloth and sew it into clothing and sleeping mats. She made her cloth by stripping bark of trees, pounding it into a plump, and then spreading the plump to dry sheets. However, because the days were so short, she could not dry the sheets of wood plump. Cloth was in short supply. People commanded, and Maui's mother begged Maui to help her. Maui promised to do what he could. He noticed that the sun had 16 legs, which allowed him to run very quickly. Maui reasoned that if he could snare those legs, he could halt the sun's journey and bargain with him. Maui's mother approved of this plan, and she gave him 16 ropes made of strong vines. Then she instructed him to seek advice from his grandmother. Maui's grandmother gave him a magic war axe and another strong rope made of twisted vines. She told Maui to hide underneath a tree at the top of a mountain. From there, she said, you will be able to see the sun as he comes up. Then his first leg creeps over the horizon. Throw your first rope, catch his leg, and fasten the rope to the tree. Do this as each of his legs comes up, and you will trap him. Before dawn in the next morning, Maui concealed himself under a tree at the top of a tall mountain. Before long, the tree's first leg appeared on the horizon, and Maui threw his rope and caught it. He fastened the rope on a tree and waited for the second leg to appear. The sun soon realized what was happening and tried to flee. But Maui, using the ropes, dragged him back and threatened him with a war axe from his grandmother. The snow was terrified and begged Maui to release him. "I will not do such a thing," Maui said, "until we reach an agreement." He described all the troubles the sun's rapid progress across the sky had made for humankind, how the people could not cook, work, or pray because the days were so short. The sun, in fear, accepted everything Maui said, and soon they made a bargain. Maui was not hard-hearted, and he agreed to allow the sun to travel quickly across the sky in winter, but in summer they agreed the sun would travel at a leisure space so that the days would be long and the people would be able to complete their work. Thus, Maui snared the sun and created the seasons we have today. Maui pulls up the islands. Maui's strength and cunning was assailed only by his love of mischief. When he and his brothers went out fishing, for example, the brothers could often catch fish as much time and effort, only to discover that the fish would be wound up in Maui's net. Eventually, Maui's brothers refused to take him fishing any longer. Maui realized that he would have to prove his worth as a fisherman if he were ever to fish with his brothers again. He decided to make a new fish hook that would catch the greatest fish in the world. Maui labored for days and made himself an enormous fish hook from the sharp bone of a twisted vine. He also breathed some of his own magic power into it. When he was finished, Maui took his hook, transformed himself into a beetle, and hid in one of his brother's fishing nets. As soon as his brothers were far out to sea, Maui transformed into a proper shape and revealed himself to them. They were not pleased, but Maui cajoled them to stay out of fishing grounds. If you will take me to the deepest parts of the ocean," Maui said, "I will show you the greatest fish in the sea." His brothers grumbled, but rather than undo Maui's agreements, they decided to grant his request. They paddled far out to the sea, and Maui cast out his magic hook and fishing line. Suddenly there was an enormous pull on the fishing line. "Paddle," Maui cried to his brothers. "Keep the line taut. We will bring in this great fish together." Maui's brothers paddled with all their might, for they were also eager to see what he had caught. It certainly was a heavy fish. As they drove their oars into the water, the brothers found that the united strength was scarcely enough to keep the canoe moving. Finally, they could hear something splash up through the waves behind the canoe. One of Maui's brothers glanced back to see what they had caught, and then he screamed, horrified. He saw an enormous island surfacing behind them, caught fast on Maui's magic fishing hook. It looked like a monstrous fish about to devour them all. Maui gave one final enormous heave, cast the line free, settling the island into place. Suddenly, the brothers found that they were paddling in shallow water next to the beach. Exhausted, they rested on their oars and looked up in wonder at the island that Maui had raised out of the ocean. That is how the hero Maui lifted the Pacific Islands out of the sea. Maui defeated. Maui gave humankind many gifts, including the gift of summer, the gift of the islands, and the gift of the sky. But there was one boon he was not able to grant humankind the gift of immortality. Maui believed that it was not right that people should die. He decided to attempt to steal the secret immortality from Hine, the goddess who kept the secret of immortal life in their heart. Maui knew that the only way to steal the secret was to steal Hine's heart. Gathering his courage, Maui approached Hine while she was sleeping and dived into her open mouth. He found Hine's heart and nearly escaped with it, but Hine woke just as he was trying to come out of her mouth again. She caught Maui in her teeth and killed him. Maui was not successful in giving humanity the gift of immortality, but humanity remembers him and honors him for the attempt. In this way, the hero Maui survived, as the stories about him are passed down from generation to generation.